everyone, my name is Paulina and welcome to Paulina's Pages. Today I'm doing a video that's a little different from the usual content I have here on my channel, but I figured it's almost New Year, so it's time to set those goals we're gonna put off all the way until the end of next year. So I might as well make a video on reading habits to leave behind in 2021. One of the questions I always ask myself when I finish a book I'm on the fence about is, do I like it because I enjoyed it and it was good, or do I like it because it was a challenge to get through it and I think I should? I feel like we're moving slowly away from the whole snobby literature thing, but the amount of times I hear people be told they're not a reader just because they haven't read one specific book or just because they read those cheap romance novellas. If you're one of those people who doesn't read classics and reads those kinds of books, that's okay. That doesn't make you any less of a reader, absolutely not. Just because those books are easier doesn't mean you automatically give away the right to be called a bookworm because you don't read pages and pages of archaic words. Reading doesn't have to be sitting around and analyzing all the time. Reading should be, well, books that you enjoy. But when you do pick other things up, like classics, for example, do ask yourself if you actually like what you're reading and you want to continue reading it, because I think it's a shame to waste time on books that you're reading just because you think that you should like them. Just because people will think that you're stupid because you haven't read it. You should read books that you enjoy. That being said, one of the things I regret is not giving classics and nonfiction a chance sooner. Last year I read Sapiens by Harari, and I found it to be fascinating, but also a real challenge to read, mostly because I wasn't used to the language and reading nonfiction, discounting textbooks of course, and it was just a lot of information being thrown at you all at once. I should reread it because I don't think I retained as much information as I should have, honestly, but I'm really glad I had the chance because after that practice I started reading more and more, and now it's just like a whole separate world, and whenever I need a break from fiction I can just turn to nonfiction and to classics, and it's become a whole lot easier. I definitely prefer reading one book about a subject rather than just browsing the internet for hours, because I feel like it's just much more efficient since you can read the book and you can enjoy the book, and it's just a sense of like being all in one place, and there's always further reading that you can refer to. Also, another advantage, especially for students, is after I started reading nonfiction more, and I mean outside of school, I feel like reading textbooks has become a lot easier, so now I can read and absorb and prepare for tests more efficiently. Making notes helps so much. Write down anything that you like, any interesting quotes, any random thoughts that come up. If you're reading electronically, just email it to yourself, or if you're reading in a paper book, type it up, put it on the dock, make a record. It doesn't matter how, but just write it down because it helps so much. I am very bad with names. I tend to forget names maybe like a month or two after reading the book, even though I am very, very good at remembering the plot. I just can't remember the names, I don't know why, but after I started making notes, I found that specifically making notes on names really helps, especially in the context of reading a series where it's like you remember what happened but you don't remember the names of the characters, so it's just really confusing. As someone who writes and films reviews a lot, making highlights, especially if you have a system, makes life about 10 times easier because you can just come back to it anytime. Plus, I 100%, if you have a thought and you want to come back to it later, you will get distracted. There are always things that distract you, but when you write it down, I feel like there's a much lower chance of you forgetting to come back to it, so it's definitely like a really useful tip I need to use. This is something that I'm very guilty of. Sometimes in a book you'll see a topic and you're like, this is really interesting, I want to come back to it, so you write it down. Then you see another topic, you write it down, etc, etc. Suddenly you have a whole doc with a list, and it's really helpful, but then you start researching one thing and you just go down a rabbit hole and there's like a million other things, but then by the time you're finished researching that one thing, you just can't be bothered to go back to the other topics, you just want to start the next book. Trust me, make a doc and just like come back to it. Like when you say you come back to it, actually come back to it, because sometimes authors hide those little things that you just need a little bit of extra context for, so this really helps you enhance the reading experience. And also this is just a great tool for all-around self-development and for trivia night. So do make that doc with all the topics on it and do actually come back to it. Life is too short to read books you don't enjoy, but seriously, don't drop it after 20 pages. This is my personal pet peeve. I know it's an unpopular opinion because people always say to just drop books if you don't like them, and generally I agree with that, but sometimes books just need time to find their pace. I was this close to not reading The Secret History after around 100 pages, but I stuck with it and now it's a new favorite, and honestly I think there's definitely a line that you should draw, like maybe don't stick around to 75% of the book if you don't like it, but also, I mean, it depends on the length of the book, but I think 100 to 150 pages is a good time span to give the book the chance to really develop. Also, maybe try and come back later because I remember that I disliked Pachinko so much. Like, I thought it was a very interesting book, but I just didn't have the energy for it right now, so I was like, okay, I'll come back to it another time. And then when I did come back to it, I finished it in about a day, and it's definitely become a new favorite too. So just give your book some time, it's not a rush, and give them the opportunity to become a new favorite. After finishing a book, make a bullet point list of your thoughts, just some things you liked, things you didn't like, and only then, and I repeat, only then, do read other people's reviews. I love reading other people's reviews, first of all out of interest, to see things I might have missed, and second of all just as a discussion-based tool. But seriously, after finishing a book, do give yourself the time to just process the information for yourself. I love buddy reads. I try to make notes on the chapters, and then only then, once I have processed the information for myself, I go and engage in discussions. I'm not easily influenced by others, but what I do want to say is that I feel like a lot of the times if you're reading a review and you agree with most of what is being said and you're just like, oh, I agree, oh, this person has good taste like me or whatever, and you just trust their opinion, you're happy with it, it's easier to just kind of let their thoughts influence your thoughts a little bit in ways that you disagree because there's just so much that you agree with. It can be small things, but I think it makes a difference. And I'm not saying you can't change your opinion, just that you should take your time because it's your reading experience, it's a unique thing to you. It's not Bob's reading experience, if you know what I mean. I want to finish with this tip, even though it's a sub-tip of, well, number 5 of giving books a chance, and of number 2 of challenging yourself with new genres. Try books you think are too hard, or books you think you're too young to understand, or you don't have the experience. Just try. And it's also really subjective, so it's your reading age, and in case you find it too hard, you can always come back to it later, and no one's gonna think any less of you. Plus, it's also really interesting to compare the insights you have at different ages, so do read those books, do challenge yourself, and then just come back to them later if you feel like you haven't really understood the content. One example of this, Gravity's Rainbow, I knew it was going to be hard, I just didn't know how hard, and I figured, well, until I try, I'll never know. I finished the book the first time, and I'm now on my second reread. By the way, the person named M, I know it's been a while, but I haven't forgotten about your comment. I am through my second reread now, and I will make a video for you, hopefully soon. Basically, what I want to say is just don't be scared to try books. There's always Google, there's always like study guides, there's always forums that you can turn to. If you're enjoying a book, just because it's hard, don't necessarily leave it. There are resources, and honestly just try, and I believe in you. With that, I want to say thank you to everyone for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it, but I also want to say that there's not really like a correct way of reading. This is just my opinion on bad reading habits that you should leave behind, so I hope you find some new favorites, and I hope you had fun. Thank you so much for watching. Please do consider liking and subscribing and commenting about your reading habits, and I will see you I will see you next week.